Hey, Brian, I'm confused. Now, I just heard you justify the shooting of Ashley Babbitt, who didn't have a gun, but because she was making threatening comments, according to you.
No, not according to me. Not according to me. There's evidence and video.
Forget about that. Okay, forget about that.
Okay.
But making threatening comments about another side of a door that she's not on. And it's okay to shoot her. But you got a guy on a subway who you've got witnesses on video thanking this guy for supporting the same situation.
So let me respond to that.
You're okay.
Let me respond.
You're okay.
I'll respond. I'll respond to it.
Because it was a Democratic or
nothing to do with politics. Nothing to do with politics.
Yeah, it
nothing to do with politics. Okay, well, are you gonna let me answer your question now? Because you said something. Let's have a conversation about it. Thank you.
What's the difference between the two situations?
I'm going to explain it to you. So,
yeah, I know you will.
Situation number one, you're talking about Ashley Babbitt. Two different circumstances. Let's talk about Ashley Babbitt to start. First of all, it was investigated, and they found that officer who pulled the trigger.
I'm
answering your question.
Brian,
I'm answering your question about the shooting
incident. At the time,
and I'm getting into it if you will allow me to finish.
Okay, don't tell me after the fact.
I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer it, whether you like it or not. Now, please let me finish, and then I will allow you to respond. I will start over again, uninterrupted, hopefully. It was investigated.
I am too.
Sir, I don't want to pod you down, but I'm trying to answer your question. Stop interrupting me. Okay, if you're going to act like a child, I'll treat you like one. I'm answering your question. I'll let you respond. Be quiet. Let me answer. It's the problem with people like you. You don't know how to listen. Ashley Babbitt broke into the Capitol illegally. She was making threats. She made threats actually before in videos. And during that time, she was 15 to 20 feet away from politicians. She was heading towards those politicians. The chants leading up to that were hang Mike Pence, and we saw the violence that led up at that point. There were officers that day were on very high alert. There were 140 officers that were injured that day. People were getting roughed up. And it's Capitol police officers' job to protect. Now, that officer in that video raises the gun. Before Ashley Babbitt was shot, the officer was saying, stand back, get down. Ashley Babbitt did not answer to those commands, and that's why the officer shot the weapon, and Ashley Babbitt was a moron who was brainwashed and deserved what she got. And by the way, sir, the law agrees with me because it was investigated and the video surfaced everywhere. Number two, going back to the subway situation. That person who was put in a chokehold and who was murdered did not, based on the video, lunge towards any people on the subway. Now, he was yelling a lot and screaming a lot and might have even been making threats. But it was not a member of law enforcement that put him in a chokehold and killed him. It was just a regular, everyday citizen. We call that in this town a vigilante. Now, if the officer, going back to the Capitol January 6th, had put, let's just say hypothetically speaking, put Ashley Babbitt in a chokehold and she became unconscious, and he didn't release his arms as she wasn't a threat, I would have a serious problem with that. He used his gun. She was a threat because she broke the window and she was trying to get through the window to get to those politicians. That was a direct threat at their lives. You cannot kill somebody just because they're screaming and yelling. This was also not a member of law enforcement. He also kept his chokehold on him for over a minute after this man was unconscious. Now, as I bring you back to discuss, where do you disagree with me on that, sir?
Did Ashley lunge at anybody?
She was actually broke the window, getting through the window towards those politicians. She was headed in the direction of the politicians. The reason why she couldn't necessarily lunge is because she had to break through the window, which she was attempting to get through.
I'm not talking about, gymnastics.
We're not talking about gymnastics either. This isn't. We're no, hold on. We're not talking about We're not.
Let me talk now.
We're not talking about gymnastics.
Let me talk now.
I'm letting you.
This conversation because it's the complete opposite of what you're trying to do.
No, it's
Daniel
not.
Penny.
No, it's not.
It is exactly
no, it's not.
the same.
First of all, let me explain to you how it's not the same.
Don't interrupt me.
No.
I listen to you. Don't interrupt.
Guess what? I'll interrupt you if I want to, dummy. You're going to listen to me now, or you can hang up the phone. Either way, I really don't care. You just said a couple things that are completely factually inaccurate. And I'm going to explain why you're 150% wrong. First of all, there are a lot of differences in these cases. First of all, that guy on the subway was not in an area where he was not supposed to be. That's number one. Number two, this was not a government building. Number three, Daniel Penny is not in law enforcement. So you keep trying to make correlations between the two. She broke the law the second she got into that building. And this isn't about gymnastics, you dope. This isn't a sport we're talking about here. We're talking about people's lives. That's what we're talking about here. This isn't gymnastics. She broke a window, trying to get through that window to get to those politicians. You know, the people that were saying, hang Mike Pence. Now, I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody that might disagree with me. But if this guy's going to say we're not talking about gymnastics, and if this guy's going to try to make the correlation between the two, you're wrong. There is no correlation. By the way, the guy who shot Ashley Babbitt is in law enforcement. He had a gun. There were no weapons found on anybody's person in this subway, the two people that were involved here. He used his arms, kept him in a chokehold after he was unconscious. Why is it so hard for people like this to understand? I'm assuming he hung up the phone, of course. He played phone gymnastics. That's what he did. No, sir, this isn't gymnastics. This isn't a sport. We're talking about people's lives. But you'll probably defend somebody like Ashley Babbitt, right? A fringe, brainwashed idiot who believed everything that your orange turd orangutan said about the 2020 election. But you'll probably believe that because you'll listen to the mental gymnastics, if you want to use that word. Thank you for the call, sir.